Eflin on the IL, which initially, Yoni, they said shoulder fatigue. And then, yeah, well, he's going on the IL for a low lat strain, our favorite thing that we like to talk about. So walk us through, why would they say shoulder fatigue? And in your mind, what's the what do we make of the low lat strain right now?
I mean, it's a low level lat strain is what they're saying, but shoulder fatigue in April, I don't know. I think that's puzzling. I think it's just like, waiting to see what the MRI comes back with. MRI comes back with the diagnosis of low level lat strain. That doesn't give us a ton of information to go on. Here's what I can say. Lat strains suck. They suck to rehab. They suck when they happen. And there's a massive crossover. As we saw with our boy Grayson, you hurt a lat, now your elbow becomes exposed and at risk. There are a lot of anatomical reasons as to why that is. But I'm not surprised to see him kind of go down and put on the shelf for a bit instead of just like, hey, we're going to rest him for a couple days.
Yeah, and right now it just seemed more of it was a camouflage saying shoulder fatigue, because you're right. They wanted to see what more of the imaging was going to say. But we've seen this story with lat strains, and they said initially where people try to be optimistic of, oh, we're just going to shut him down for a week. But if you shut him down for a week, Yoni, I'm trying to look at this. I don't see Zach pitching in an actual big league game if they're shutting him down from throwing for a week. What's the earliest timeline you think we would see Zach Eflin back on the bump in Baltimore?
In Baltimore, I think you're looking at 3 to 4 weeks. That's the optimist in me. When we start putting out guesstimates as to when these guys are going to get back, part of it has to be these guys are freaks. And so a lot of times they will get back faster. Who knows kind of what they're doing in order to allow for that. So that's like the grain of salt. But if you're a high-level pitcher that's not in the big leagues and you strain a lat, you're looking at usually 6 to 8 weeks. That's why I would say 3 to 4, 3 to 5, ballpark. Obviously, I didn't see the imaging, so I'm giving my best guess there. It's important to note like why the lat strain is so challenging. That's a better term than suck. So challenging for us rehab professionals and for the athlete. Obviously, the lat is a massive muscle in your back. It actually starts towards the bottom of your back. In some athletes, it even connects to the pelvis, comes all the way up, wraps around the side of your back, and then inserts into the front of the shoulder with a host of other tendons. The reason this is important is because it is the connection point between your pelvis and the arm. It's the way you translate force all the way up. And so you're going to use it like crazy when you throw. You don't use it much in daily living like you do when you throw. And so you got to think about that as you're trying to train to get back. You're not using it all the time. So it'll get weak, but more importantly, it'll get very tight. It gets stretched when you reach up over your head or when you let your arm fall back into what we call layback position. So that's when you usually pull the lat. And the truth is, like, you look at a guy like Eflin, he's a big dude. Those guys are usually much tighter. That puts you at a higher likelihood of straining the lat. That's why it takes so long to get these guys back.
Yeah. And you know what? Actually, I saw Brooks bring this up. We're talking about trying to help take care of injuries. We're seeing so many different things about deceleration drills. Is there a way in your mind that actually can help or prevent injuries specifically to the lat region?
Hell yes. So you got to look at the way your athlete is put together. I made the reference to how big of a guy Eflin is, but you look at the way he's built. He's a large flare individual, we call him, which means his ribs kind of flare out. He's very upright, and so that puts the lat. It makes the lat very tight. You look at the way his arm action is. It's actually a tighter arm action. He doesn't have this massive layback that you see a lot. And so his lat is probably tight to begin with. And so when you rehab these things, it's not just the deceleration drills that are important. the lat is actually most active during the acceleration phase of your pitching. So it's from all the way that layback position just as you start going forward. That's when the lat gets activated. You got to look at the posture of the individual. So if your ribs are really flared, you got to teach the athlete to be very strong along what we call the front line or the anterior line of the athlete to get his core strong. The lat helps in core stability. So it's actually going to be a tremendous amount of core stabilization exercises that I'd be putting Zach through. And then the rotator cuff, both deceleration and acceleration to offload some of that lat will go a long way, and restoring as much range of motion as we can to increase his ease of getting to that layback.
That's a whole lot of things that go in there. And to be honest, Zach, I didn't think that it's the intricacies that go, but that's actually why I love talking to you about it, because it's not just one thing.